today I have something very different to bring to my channel, but I think it's very fitting. So my channel is all-inclusive to all fandoms, which I think includes the Odyssey, or more specifically, Epic the Musical. I really wanted to make a video talking about this amazing form of art and music that we recently just got the end to a couple days ago. This is something that me, my partner, and all of our friends really love dearly. And at the end of the day, it's another fandom. It's based off of an older story and turned into a piece of art. And so I think it's very fitting to have kind of a discussion about it on my channel. So more specifically, what I wanted to talk about is my journey throughout the whole Epic the Musical, Sagas, everything to do with it, Jorge, the person who put everything together, basically just my journey through it all. My very first year of high school, I read the Odyssey and I hated it. Full on, could not understand what was happening. I also just tend to hate reading books that are forced upon us in school settings, so that was another reason why I was never really one for mythology and things like that. The Odyssey really turned me off because I just didn't understand it. I was being tested on this stuff. Literally the one thing I remember was Polyphemus, the whole Cyclops scene. That's literally it because I did not care at all. So fast forward to many years later and my partner is obsessing over this music. And I'm like, whoa, what's it from? Like, what's this about? Like, cause obviously when you first start listening to this music, it has a very different feel. It's not like other music. There's a whole story behind it, which I didn't understand what was happening at first. And he was like, oh, it's based off of the Odyssey. And I was like, I just got this full sense of like ick because of my experience in high school, because I hated the Odyssey. Fast forward to now, this is incredible. Epic the Musical has completely changed my mind on the Odyssey story. Of course, now I'm older, so I understand the story a lot more than when I was like 14 years old. And so I have a better appreciation for it, especially with all of the music and the art that went behind this musical. But to bring it back to the beginning, I was very skeptical, and my partner was listening to this from the very beginning. He got into it, he loves mythology, all of that stuff, so it was very easy for him. I slowly would start listening to it and I was like, okay, they're good songs, but I'm not connecting with them. And I think that just had a lot to do with just my connection with the Odyssey back in high school, and I didn't care. My partner and I were on vacation while Epic Musical was about halfway through the whole story making. And one night when we had some downtime, my partner put on our TV kind of like the art animation style of what each of the songs was kind of telling throughout the story so that I could probably understand it a lot better. And that is when it clicked for me. I was like, oh wow, like you have to listen to these songs kind of back to back, and there's sagas, there's like these sections for each one, and they're these small stories that turn into one big story. And that's how it started for me. I believe that was around the Underworld to Thunder saga, so around like 6 or 7 parts into this full story that I really started to understand and appreciate it more. And so as these sagas kept coming out, the last 4 to 5 that were coming, we would get all hyped up and we'd listen to it together. And of course, fast forward to the very last saga that just came out, the Ithaca saga, which just absolutely blew my mind. And so I just think it's really special that I started at like absolute, not even 0, but like negative, just negativity toward this story, not the musical because it's very different, but then this musical and this whole art style that went into it like really got me pumped for this story and everything that went into it, because this musical is literally perfection. It is so unique and has so much to share. I wanted to give a huge, enormous shout out to Jorge, the person who kind of put all of this together and put out auditions for people to try to get casted into Epic, and just how all of it worked was just so fair. And there's just this sense of like being so inclusive when it comes to Epic, and all of the people who were involved, all of the voices, all of the artists, even, people like me, artists that aren't in the official Epic, but that get to share their art through this music. And things like cosplay, I know, are really starting to beam with this musical as well. There are things that I would love to do in cosplay for these songs that I'm very excited for and have plans for. And so not only Jorge's music and his scripting and writing and everything for this song that came together for just the Odyssey story, but for artists and music and kind of just like this whole unique vibe and this turn that like music just kind of like took a turn for, because it is so different and very musical feeling, like this could be acted out as like a show, and I think one day it will. And going back to when I talked about in high school when I didn't like the Odyssey, maybe things like this would really help students understand the story more if it's in their curriculum and they need to learn this story and this writing style. I think that this would be a really great tool, especially for when I needed to read this in high school. And so not only shout out to Jorge and everything that he accomplished by making Epic the musical, but all of the voice actors and artists and everything, all the people who worked on Epic, absolutely huge shout out to you. But now I wanted to talk a bit about the musical as a whole. So of course there are 9 sagas, and I wanted to talk briefly about each one and about my favorite songs from each saga. So starting with number 1, the Troy saga. My favorite song from this saga is Just a Man. Now this was the very first song that I heard. My partner introduced it to me and he was playing it all the time. I have no idea what's going on. Let me listen and kind of get into this. And yes, that song is at the top of my list. It's such a good song, even just like as a normal song to listen to, not even like part of the story. Saga 2, the Cyclops saga. My favorite song from this was Survive. Now the song before that, Polyphemus and Survive, literally flowed so well together. And there are so many songs that do this throughout the entirety of the story, but the flow is just immaculate when it comes to the sagas blending together and the songs within each saga blending together. Like sometimes I would listen and I'd be like, oh wow, this is a really long song. And my partner's like, no, this is like 2 to 3 songs. You just didn't hear the chunk in between. And I'm like, dang, that is incredible song and writing style. The Cyclops saga definitely meant a lot more to me just because that was really the only thing I remembered from the Odyssey. And so when I was listening to it for the first time especially, I was like, oh yeah, I do remember this. I remember thinking about how sad it was and everything that went into that. But of course this story is very sad. The third saga, the Ocean saga. My favorite song by far in this one is Ruthlessness. I fell in love with this song. This was probably the first song that I was like, oh, hands down, this is my favorite thing ever. This is incredible. I love this. The message behind what Poseidon says is like so true from like his point of view, and Odysseus trying to fight him back. It's so sad and like heart-wrenching at the same time. And so everything about that song and that saga was awesome. Saga number 4, the Circe saga. My favorite song from this one is Wouldn't You Like? I thought that this song was really just like upbeat, the dancey kind of feel to it, which I think is the point of it based on the characters that we of course have in this song. But it was just really fun. I know my partner, that's his favorite song too from that saga. So that one's always fun to just kind of jam out to. Saga number 5, the Underworld saga. My favorite song from this is Monster. Now this song, it just has the overall vibe and feel of just monster. We really get to see Odysseus change gears. The character arcs and character kind of flow throughout this whole story is so well depicted throughout all of the sagas. And that of course isn't really something you get in traditional music, but of course we see that a lot with Odysseus turning into, you know, this father and having to go through 20 years of essentially hell just to get back to his wife and son, and seeing him have to endure all of his friends dying and having to battle and take the lives of people and trick people and all of the horrendous things he had to endure during this adventure, during this journey. And I love that you can see that kind of character flow, not necessarily from like good to bad, but just being somewhere and being probably very innocent and then flowing into a whole new person, this kind of monster. Athena, of course, we get to see her development through it all too, but very much the opposite side of it. She kind of started as being this kind of hardcore, you gotta fight, you gotta defend, you gotta be brave for yourself, of course. And then by the end of it, when we get to the last saga, she's like, dang, what if we just had a little bit more empathy in this world? And like, I just love the beauty surrounding those two characters in particular, the amount of character development and character growth and this flow that we got through the whole story for both of them so well throughout all of this story. Saga number 6, we have the Thunder Saga. Now, my friends and I can all agree that Thunderbringer was our favorite song from this saga. It's just so epic, and when you bring in like the big voices like Poseidon and Zeus, you feel so much more of that like power, and those voice actors, of course, shout out to them for just having the perfect voices for these amazing godlike characters. Saga number 7, we have the Wisdom Saga. This is probably one of my favorite sagas. All the songs were absolutely incredible, and this saga in particular, I remember being really special because my friends and I got to listen to it while we were at a convention. The saga just happened to come out while we were all in a hotel that we were sharing and getting into cosplay, and we all got to spend one of those nights listening to this saga together. And of course, being with friends, I feel like that's the whole point of just enjoying music and stories together, and so that was really fun and enjoyable. But if I had to pick 2 of my favorite songs from this saga, it would be Little Wolf and God Games. Little Wolf, I just love from the start. I absolutely love like the art animation of it and getting to see more of Telemachus through that song and Legendary. And of course, as we move farther into the sagas that are more current, God Games was so cool because of the whole power level of like all the gods and goddesses in it. And you could just so clearly see the personalities of each of these gods and goddesses as Athena is trying to make her way to Zeus to try to get Odysseus off that island. I absolutely love how Jorge got to include his family into the voice acting, and so of course his dad voices Hephaestus and other things like that, which I think is just so wholesome and amazing. But the vibe of that song is just so good. It's so perfect. It leaves off on a cliffhanger. We don't know if Athena died or not, which we had all thought, like, I think she died, you know, but when we get to the Ithaca saga, you know that she's still alive and she's talking to Odysseus, and so that was amazing. The 8th saga, the Vengeance Saga, my favorite song from this one was probably 600 Strike. It was just so epic seeing this face-off of Poseidon and Odysseus again at the end. And again, going back to this character development that we see, but with Poseidon and how he was before, talking about mercy and how Odysseus brought that back and like slapped it in his face. Now he's just like, I just want to get back to my family, man, just come on. And all of Odysseus's rage and anger and just like, he's had enough at that point, and he just wants to get past Poseidon, and that he does. And it was just the big bang end of that saga to lead into, of course, our 9th and final saga, the Ithaca Saga, which of course came out a few days ago. My friends and I all listened together to this saga, and then of course we watched the live stream from Jorge, which was also so special. And I love all of these songs for the Ithaca Saga so much for different reasons, but I'd have to say that Odysseus and I Can't Help But Wonder were my favorites. Odysseus mainly because of this feel of like, oh my gosh, our main character has finally made it home. He's getting past this final obstacle of all these suitors, and all he wants is to get to his son and wife, which are so close. His son is literally like right next to him almost. It felt so movie-like, and especially aided by the fan art and animation that parallels this song. Literally perfection, just like from start to finish. Of course, the Ithaca Saga is also a little bit longer than other songs we've had, and so we get more like developed time with Odysseus and Telemachus and all of the suitors, and it's just so movie-like, and it was so moving and emotional. It was so good. The power behind the voice acting, like, it's literally perfection. And then I Can't Help But Wonder just got me emotionally. Like when I heard that song like halfway through, when Odysseus and Telemachus hug, I lost it. It was over. Me and my friends were sobbing, as of course we should, because it's very emotional. It's the end of the story, but oh my gosh, the emotion of like a father and son making it to each other, and then of course like the husband and wife in the next song. It's just so emotional and it's so good. and Athena's at the end of that song. It's wrapped up so perfectly, and I could just gush about it. I love it. All in all, those are my very brief thoughts and kind of journey through Epic the musical. Again, I wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone who was a part of this story and all of the thousands to millions of fans around the world who are making this such a big deal, as it should, because as I said earlier, this is such a unique and inclusive story that is just literally perfection, and I am so excited to see where this goes in the coming years, what becomes of it, and what Jorge has up his sleeve, because as he said, he is not done yet. There will be more to come in the future. I would love to hear in the comments what your favorite songs are, or if you had a favorite saga, or if your favorite song from each saga like I talked about, or even your journey through the Epic musical itself. And so with that, I hope you enjoyed me talking about this very different kind of theme on my channel. I hope you enjoyed. Have a happy new year, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!